Hi everyone, this is Grace of gbmaltese, and I hope you're doing fine on frogs here today. I thought I would do a little diamond painting, and while I was doing that, I thought I'd tell you of a story I read about, a true story that happened back in the 1920s. I love to read about things that happen. This is true, and I found it interesting, something different. So I thought I'd tell you about it. It's about the death of Virginia Rapp and the trial of Fatty Arbuckle. And you can tell me down below when I'm finished whether you've heard of this story before or not. It is, I found this on the site allthatisinteresting.com, and I found it to be interesting, so here we are. I'm going to read this. Well, I'm kind of paraphrasing things that I found, but this happened in the 1920s, and the story begins in 1921, and it's about a silent film actor. He was a comedian, and he worked with the likes of Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, but he was even more well known than they were. He had just signed a new deal with Paramount Pictures, and he was going to be the highest paid actor in the world at this time. He signed a deal to be paid $1 million, which is about $14 million today, which is pretty much an unheard of sum back in those days. Actors didn't make the kind of money like they make today. Anyway, there were posters put up about his movies, and he was kind of a rotund man who weighed 266 pounds and was about 5 foot 10 inches. And they said he was worth his weight in laughs. So everyone found him quite funny, and everyone went to the movies to see him. But before the year 1921 was finished, he was accused of a crime so monstrous that he would never appear on screen again. So let's find out exactly what happened. There are a lot of conflicting accounts about what did happen. The tabloids were exaggerating. There was a lot of people talking about the crime that ended Arbuckle's acting career and made it difficult to determine what really did happen on that fateful day. So, even today, there are publications. People are still going back and re-examining the scandal to see if they can find out something different, come up with a different conclusion as to whether Fatty Arbuckle was really guilty or innocent. So, I'm going to tell you what was said back in the 1920s, and you'll kind of have to come up with what you would believe. Since we weren't there, it's going to be hard for us to know what's true and what's false. Now, the only indisputable fact we know this actually happened on September the 5th, 1921. It was on a Memorial Day weekend, and there was a party at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. Now, during this period of time, it was during Prohibition, but there was a lot of alcohol at this party. And both Arbuckle, who was 33 at the time, and a woman named Virginia Rapp were in attendance. They were both at the party. At some point during the party, Arbuckle and Rapp were briefly in the same hotel room together. But when Arbuckle left the room, Rapp remained lying on the bed, and she was writhing in pain. 4 days later, she died of a ruptured bladder. So what happened in that room? What went on? What was being said about what happened during that party? So what fueled the scandal at the time, and has remained a mystery since then, was what role, if any, did Arbuckle play in Rapp's death? There was another party goer who accused Fatty Arbuckle of raping and killing her, and he was tried 3 different times for those crimes. Now, the first 2 trials that took place, one of them, the first one lasted about a year. The first 2 trials ended up in a hung jury, but the third ended with an acquittal. But there is controversy surrounding the case. So let's learn a little bit more about what happened. Well, the woman who was killed was Virginia Rapp, and I have seen in a couple of areas that she was 26 years old when this happened, and I've seen somewhere else where she was 30 years old. Anyway, she was a young woman. She was an aspiring actress and model, and she was originally from Chicago, and she did have a reputation of being something of a party girl. During the party in question, many witnesses recall that an intoxicated Rapp complained she could not breathe and then started to tear off her clothes. So many people heard her say that and saw her taking her clothes off. Now, this was not the first time that Virginia had stripped while being intoxicated. One newspaper even dubbed her as an amateur call girl who used to get drunk at parties and start to tear her clothes off. Now, that was a newspaper that came out with that. Who knows whether it's true or not? We were not there. Now, Rapp's detractors used this evidence of her wild ways, and her defenders pointed out that she did have a bladder condition that was exacerbated by alcohol. And this used to cause her so much pain and discomfort that when she got drunk, she did take off her clothes in an attempt to alleviate her condition. She would be in so much pain that she would take her clothes off to try to find some comfort. Now, as for the event of September 5th, 1921, the accounts vary quite a bit. There was one party goer, and her name was Maud Delmont, and she said that after a few drinks, that Arbuckle strong-armed Virginia Rapp into his room, and she said she heard him say, "I've waited for you 5 years, and now I've got you." And then after 30 minutes or so, Delmont said she was concerned because she said she heard screaming from behind the closed doors of Arbuckle's room, and she started knocking on the door. She said that when Arbuckle answered the door, he was wearing his foolish screen smile. And Virginia Rapp was on the bed, and she was naked and moaning in pain. Delmont also said that Rapp managed to gasp, "Arbuckle did it," before she was taken into a different hotel room. So she was moved from one place to another, as she was quite ill. Arbuckle, however, testified that he had actually got into his bathroom and found Rapp already there on the floor vomiting. So she was very, very sick. And he helped her onto the bed, and he went and talked to guests, and the guests went and got a hotel doctor. And he determined that Rapp was just heavily intoxicated. And so he took her to another hotel room so she could sleep it off. So The doctor thinks she's just been drinking too much and she needs to go sleep it off. Well, let's see if that actually did any good. Whatever happened that night, Virginia Rapp's condition had not improved after 3 days. So they left her in that hospital room for 3 days. I mean, not the hospital, in the hotel room for 3 days. And she wasn't getting any better. So, obviously, it was more to do than with alcohol. So, finally, they took her to the hospital. Now, to start with, the doctors thought that she had died of alcohol poisoning from the bootleg liquor, which was being served. But, as it turned out, she had peritonitis, and I looked that up to see what that is, and it says it is an inflammation of the localized or of the lining of the inner wall of the abdomen and the cover of the abdominal organs. So that would be very painful. If your abdomen and organs are inflamed, that would be very painful. So you can see why she might be wanting to get her clothes off and try to get comfortable. But that's what they found out. She had peritonitis, and this resulted from a ruptured bladder. And they thought that was a pre-existing condition. They said the ruptured bladder and peritonitis are what killed her the next day, September 9th, 1921. Now, at the hospital, Delmont told police that Rapp had been basically assaulted by Arbuckle at the party, and on September 11th, 1921, the comedian was arrested. Newspapers across the country went wild over this. Some of them were saying that overweight Arbuckle had damaged Rapp's liver by crushing her while trying to have his way with her, while others offered up other even crazier stories. There were all kinds of crazy stories, and I'm not going to talk about some of the stories because they're just gross, just disgusting as to what they said that the Arbuckle had done to her. They just, I don't know, I guess just making things up because they had no proof. They weren't in there. Anyway, both Fatty Arbuckle and Virginia Rapp's names were dragged through the mud because the newspapers wanted to print the most salacious rumors that they could find. Publishing magnate William Randolph Hearst gleefully noted that the scandal had sold more papers than the sinking of the Lusitania. Now, by the time Arbuckle did go to trial for manslaughter, his reputation had been ruined. People, they didn't know what had happened. They'd been dragging both him and Virginia's name through the mud, which I find disgusting. This poor woman has died, and I just think that's wrong. We're talking about someone who cannot even stand up for themselves. But anyway, Delmont, who, was accusing Arbuckle of having done things to her, she was never called to the stand because she kept changing her story. And also because of her, because of her reputation. Her nickname was actually Madame Black because she was known for procuring girls for Hollywood parties, and she would use those girls to instigate scandalous acts, and afterwards she would blackmail the celebrities because she said she would keep what they had done quiet if they paid her. So she blackmailed celebrities after she had got these girls to perform whatever it was that happened. So she doesn't sound too good of a witness, does she? Anyway, this is another thing that really destroyed her credibility. She sent a telegram to the attorneys, and it said, "We have Roscoe Arbuckle in a hole. We have a chance to make some money out of him." So, sounds like she wanted to do a little blackmail here. Meanwhile, although Arbuckle's lawyer showed that the autopsy had concluded that there were no marks of violence on the body, no signs that the girl had been attacked in any way, and there were many witnesses who agreed with the actor's version of the events, it still took 3 trials before Arbuckle was acquitted, because the first 2 ended with hung juries. As I said, the first trial took about a year before they ended up with a hung jury. Arbuckle ended up spending about $700,000 for his defense. A lot of money. Now, by this time, the scandal had so devastated Arbuckle's career that when the jury did acquit him, they felt obliged to read a statement. And this is what the statement said: "We wish him success and hope that the American people will take the judgment of 14 men and women that Roscoe Arbuckle is entirely innocent and free from all blame." But it was already too late. So much time had passed, his name had been dragged through the dirt. So now Hollywood's highest paid star was now box office poison. His movies were pulled from cinemas, and he never worked on screen again. He was ruined. He ended up changing his name to William B. Good, and he went by Will Be Good, and that was the name he ended up using when he did work behind the camera, okay? He was still able to do some film work, but he didn't make much money doing this at all. He worked for the people who stood by him and believed his story, that he hadn't done anything. His career didn't have a chance, and he never was able to regain his footing to make films ever again. He died of a heart attack in 1933 at age 46, having never fully restored his reputation. I found it to be a sad story for both Virginia Rapp and Fatty Arbuckle. 2 lives tragically ruined. One in death, and one with the loss of what he loved to do and was so good at. Very sad. Tell me if you have heard this story before, and what do you think? Do you think that justice was served? Do you think it's fair that he was basically thrown away and not able to ever act again? What had happened were that the people who worked in the film industries, they wouldn't show his films. They thought he was just going to ruin everything that they built. So for 10 months, they wouldn't play any of his films. But then they changed their mind after 10 months. But it was too late. They listened to all the scandal that was out there, and so even though they might have tried to show some of his films, it was too late. So it is really sad. And for Virginia Rapp to die like that, that's awful. What if the doctor had gone ahead and taken her to the hospital instead of just leaving there saying she's drunk? Could they have saved her life? I don't know. That's something we will never know, because they didn't do that. Anyway, tell me what you think below. Tell me if you enjoyed listening to this type of story. And I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, night, evening, whatever it is. Take care of yourself, guys. Love you. God bless. And I'll see you before long. Bye.